So good morning and welcome to this Sunday service for the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox. And just before we go any further, if anybody has their phone on, this would be a good time to turn it off. And if there's anybody watching during the week to one of our recordings, if you've never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. Our practitioner today is Reverend Jenna. Our reader was Ed Powers, but Ed had to leave, so I am going to read what Ed wrote. And actually, we were going to have a board meeting today, but we're going to not have it, and we'll have to figure out when we're going to do it later this month. And Beck, is anybody besides me on? Oh, all right. Let me just say then, Ed's wife had an accident and fell, and so he had to leave, and so that's one of the reasons why we're not going to do the board meeting today. And the other announcement that we had was today is birthday Sunday. So anybody whose birthday is in April, we're not going to sing, but we wish you a happy birthday. Anybody here in April? No? All right, Beck, you could do another song.
Me first or you? Okay. The cat woke me up too early this morning. All right, so let's just take this moment to settle comfortably back in our chairs and relax into this holy moment. Let us be still and know that there is that one power and presence, that higher power that is filled with life and love, wholeness, completeness, and perfection. And let us surrender any limitation we have of who we are and embrace the truth that we are expressions of this wholeness, this love, this completeness. And as we surrender into this awareness, we arise into our own personal experience of love and God and good and peace and abundance, tranquility and wholeness. As we come together today in community, we bring this sense of calm and peace and love into our experience here at the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast. And we share this love with one another, supporting, nurturing, empowering each other to recognize, to be still and know we are expressions of the One Most High. And today I so give thanks and I bless Reverend Dr. Ron Fox for sharing ideas and thoughts and his wisdom that empowers each and every one of us to know more truly, more deeply, more thoroughly that we are one with all that is, that we embrace this awareness and we become that which is great within us. We allow it to unfold and to be as we release anything unlike the truth. And for all of this, I do give thanks, and so it is.
So I just have to tell you, when I saw Ed this morning, I'm going to be doing the reading, but this is Ed's. Ed wrote this. When I saw him this morning and we thought we were going to have the board meeting, I said to him, you and I are going to have a problem at the board meeting, Ed, because I didn't like your minutes. And he laughed and he said, where do you see my reading? Then we're really going to have a problem. So I told him I wouldn't read you the title, but I will. Because it'll be kind of interesting if we don't agree. The title, pardon? Speak up. Okay. Can you hear me now? Better? Okay. So the title of his reading is "You Are Not Vulnerable." And he starts out with Dr. Brene Brown, who I'm going to speak about a lot today. And he said, Dr. Brene Brown, she's a research professor at the University of Houston. He says that vulnerability is having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it is our greatest measure of courage. Feeling vulnerable is about fear, having the belief that while living in God, everything happens with meaning, purpose, and order, leads to the understanding that random, pointless, stupid things just don't happen. There is no such thing as bad luck or being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Every situation, no matter what it looks like or feels like, is a part of God's divine plan. Every challenge is there to prepare you for bigger and better, to make you stronger and smarter. See challenges as a necessary step to get you ready for your dreams when they show up. This is all part of the universe that supports everything within it and therefore pushes you towards success. Life is rigged in our favor. There is no vulnerability. Life in God is perfect. Don't wish for better. Don't judge. You'll only need to forgive yourself for it later. Look for how life can help you grow. Often we forget to thank God for the lessons. Divine love is real. Don't be afraid to feel vulnerable, to put your hearts put your hearts out there in love. Be the first to say, I love you. And now he wrote about me. He said, and now Dr. Reverend Ron Fox will tell us that there is power in letting ourselves feel vulnerable. That's right. So actually, it's, well, I didn't do that. The title of the message, can you still hear me? Mm-hmm. The title is the power of vulnerability. And I want to start off with a quote from Ernest Holmes, who said, there is an irresistible potential pressing against everyone for self-expression. If we listen, we shall hear it, not as a voice, but as a feeling, a divine urge to express. And so I just wrote that being willing to risk living authentically leads us to that potential within. And so with vulnerable, I really read a lot about vulnerability this week. Vulnerability becomes the starting point for authenticity and connection in our life. It calls us to bring our own unique expression to life while extending the same to other people. And so Brene Brown writes a lot about those. She's been on Oprah. She's really terrific. And she said that it's not good or bad. You know, we don't judge it as being good or bad. And so she asked a group of people to finish this sentence. Vulnerability is, okay, that's the sentence. Vulnerability is, and here are some of the replies that she got. Standing up for myself, calling a friend whose child just died, falling in love, saying I love you first, asking my husband or wife for sex, reaching out to my son who is going through a divorce, asking for forgiveness. That sounds to me pretty courageous to be willing to get up and do that. And then Brene Brown asked people how vulnerability felt. And here are some of the responses she got when she asked people how it felt. It's where fear and courage meet. Going out on a limb. Awkward and scary, being all in, freedom and liberation. And when she asked people what vulnerability felt like, this is the answer that she got the most: naked, feeling naked. So, what that says to me, you can see it's not always easy to be willing to be vulnerable. It's about sharing our feelings and responses. And I read an article by a fellow named Samuel Neff this week, and I kind of talked about what he wrote last week too, when I talked about how human beings need other people. We're social beings, and he said kind of the same thing. We need to connect with people. We have a desire to be understood, to be heard, and to be cared about. And he said, when we take time to know each other, that's when we really care about one another. And he gave an example. He applied for a credit card and he was turned down. And he was upset initially. And then he decided to go into the bank and meet with the manager, not in anger, but just meet. And he said, and he also gave himself plenty of time. He went there and he spoke to the bank manager, and they made this connection and got to know one another, and he got approved for the card. And to connect, we need to be present as really who we are, and not the one who we masquerade as sometimes. And one way to do that, one way to connect, I thought this was really interesting, and I actually did the exercise I'm about to tell you, all right? And that is, make a list of people who matter to you and who you matter to, and people whose opinions matter to you, and who you think your opinion matters to them. People who care about your success, and people who won't abandon you if you fail. Make that list, and that's a way to start being vulnerable, because those are people, to me, that's what I thought, people that you're really comfortable with and that you love, and they love you back. And I'm not going to tell you who was on the list, but I came up with 3 people, and maybe a 4th who I'm developing a relationship with. But I don't mind being vulnerable here, but people who really, that I know, no matter what the heck I did or what I said, they would be with me. I'll tell you, they were Becky, Jenna, and my daughter. Those were the 3 people. Did you? Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not going to say who the 4th is, because it's somebody in our center, but it might embarrass the person, so I don't want to do it. But Cherie Carter, who's a wonderful writer, said we need to trust ourselves to honor our truth, because even when the road gets bumpy, when doubts arise, we're going to be okay, because there's a place inside us that really knows, that knows the truth. And I read a quote this week from a fellow named Stephen Russell, who said, vulnerability is the only authentic state. Being vulnerable means being open for wounding, but also for pleasure. Being open to the wounds of life means also being open to the bounty and the beauty. And so I read this story this week that I'll share with you, and it comes from a book called Shameless by a lady named Nadia Bowles-Weber. And honestly, when I first read this, I wasn't clear on how it's about vulnerability, but it is. And she writes about Jesus. And what she said is, after the crucifixion, he comes the resurrection, okay, which is next week. And next week's Easter Sunday. And after the resurrection, she said, Jesus showed his wounds to his friends. He didn't wear gloves to hide the holes in his hand. He showed them his side. And she said he was shameless. He was unashamed to show his wounded body, which is being vulnerable. And she said he was unafraid of the human bodies that he saw in his ministry, because he was not afraid to touch lepers, to touch blind people, to touch people who were possessed. She said, and he knew on some level that he would be known by his brokenness and his scars. And she said, isn't that true for all of us? We can only really be known when we show how life has marked us. And that's when we make a true connection, when people share with us the difficult pieces. And I'll just stop. I want to read a quote from her, but isn't that true in your own life? If you look at it, isn't that when you really connect and get to know somebody, when they don't only share the good times, but they're willing to tell you, wow, this really hurts, or wow, this is really, really tough. And I hadn't planned on saying this, and I know it's not a big deal, but the last 2 weeks, I had to cancel the book group, Color My Eye. And I was telling Becky, it really, particularly the second week, made me feel really vulnerable to do it, because I thought I was saying, see, I'm too weak to have the book group. And I know on some level that's not true, but I remember I even talked to Jenna about it, that I really didn't want to do it, but I couldn't read. And I felt like in a rock in a hard place. And I finally did it, but it was really, really tough for me to do. And I didn't share this with Jenna, but I shared it with Becky. And I thought, maybe I'll ask Jenna or Becky to facilitate it for me this week, so we didn't have to cancel it. And Becky said to me, but I haven't read the book. And I said, yeah, that's why I didn't ask you. But anyway, so I want to read you a quote that this lady that wrote this book read. She said, our pain and failure and the things we often try to hide, the things that create shame, the things that scar us, are what give us texture. And without texture, there's nothing for us to connect to, which is, I guess, just what I was saying, but she said it better. So Brene Brown was giving a TED talk one day, and she was the last person to go. So she got to watch other people, and she was watching other people be vulnerable in their talk. So when it came her turn, the first thing she did, she asked the audience a question. And here's the question she asked them: how many struggle with vulnerability because you see it as weakness? And almost all the hands went up. And then she said to them, now they had watched all of these TED Talks, okay? She said to them, when you watched other people being vulnerable, how many thought it was courageous? And again, all the hands shot up. And so her conclusion was, we like seeing rawness and truth in other people, but we're afraid to let them see it in us. Think about that. Just think about that. If we like seeing it, if we respect it in other people, if we think it's brave and courageous, why wouldn't we monitor it? I mirror it. Why wouldn't we mirror it in ourselves? Be willing, you know, if you see something and you say, wow, that's really brave, and you have the ability to do it, why would you not do it? Why would you not be open and courageous? You know, there's a story that Gandhi was on a train one day, and as the train was pulling out, a young reporter ran alongside the train and said, Mr. Gandhi, what's your message to the Indian people. And Gandhi said, my life is my message. And that's true for all of us, not just the good stuff, but all of our life. So I got a math problem for you. All right, you ready? You ready, Lombardi? All right. Okay, so here, oh yeah, pedal too. Okay. So a frog is standing on one end of a log. All right, you got this? And it jumps towards the other end. Okay. The first jump takes the frog halfway across. The next jump takes the frog halfway across again. Okay. The next jump halfway across again. How many jumps will it take before the frog reaches the end of the log? Yeah, you're right. You're right. Son of a gun. Son of a gun. All right.
Call that an asymptotic relationship.
Oh,
That's what that's called.
wow.
It's closer and closer.
Okay.
closer and closer.
All right. I'm impressed. Okay. I really am. So Alan Cohn said a math teacher in the class gave them that problem, and all the kids are going, blah, 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 you're trying to figure it out. And the fact is, it's a trick question because the frog never reaches the end. It can get closer and closer, but it would never reach the end. You knew that too? And you did too? And the two of you aren't full of baloney back there? No? All right.
Kids, we're all math people, so we were
All right.
talking about it and.
It's okay. Keep going.
Yeah.
Becky, you didn't get it. Okay, good. So Alan Cohn said that that's a trick question. And his point is that when we try to get other people's approval and prove ourselves to other people, we can get closer and closer, but most of the time we're never ever going to get there. And it just reminded me, I became friends with a wonderful minister. And Becky and I went to a talk he gave, and he said to the congregation that when he was a young man, his father always told him he was going to be a bum. And the minister was 70 years old, and he actually started to cry, and he looked up and he said, "See, Dad, you were wrong." And kind of the point is, here his father's dead, but he's still trying to prove himself to that dad, and sometimes we're living other people's dreams. It takes a lot of courage to examine our own lives, and some of us really are fearful to do it because we're afraid of what we're going to see. So we deflect with our phones. I mean, how many times have you seen people out, and their head is in their phones or their computer or their TVs, or they drink too much or take drugs, any diversion that they can find. But it's only when we're willing to look within and grow that we can see the spiritual powerhouses that we are, when we make the choice to live an authentic life. So before I close, here are some questions that you could ask yourself. What qualities do you most value about yourself? What qualities do you most value about yourself? What qualities do you most want to claim and express? What qualities do you most want to claim and express? What makes you feel most alive? I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I can't get over the fact you all knew the answer to that question. What makes you feel most alive? What, if anything, is holding you back from being your best self? So I wanted to close with two quotes. I couldn't decide which ones to use, and they're short, so I thought I'd close with both of them. And one of them, the first one, is from Hafiz, who said, "I wish I could show you, when you're lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. And the other one is from Emerson, who said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. So God bless you all, and thank you for being here today.